I'm thrilled to have the wonderful Robin Joy Meyers on our podcast today. Robin married her expertise as a molecular geneticist and the early death of her mother to understand the science of fear. And now she helps empower thousands of women worldwide to amplify their voice, embrace change, and thrive through life's transitions. With over 25 years of experience in the corporate and nonprofit world, Robin Joy Meyers is an international speaker, talk show host, and has spoken at renowned corporations. She is also the creator of the F.E.A.R method and author of a book called Alone But Not Lonely, Reclaim Your Identity and Be Unapologetically You, which apparently was listed among the 13 life coach self-development books that everyone should read. So that's amazing. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. And Robin's upcoming book, The Common Denominator, will be also released in 2021. Robin, thank you so much. I'm so thrilled to have you here. And, how are you doing today?
I am so good. Thank you, Kavita.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. I love being with you.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, we've had so many conversations. I just wanted everyone to hear your story and to really learn from your amazing experience, which I just went through. But, Robin, I talked a little bit about how you moved from being a molecular geneticist to what you're doing today, which is really helping women overcome their fears. And that must have been a huge kind of transition and reinvention for you. Maybe you could tell our audience a little bit about your story and how you got, what triggered the transition from moving from geneticist to what you're doing now.
Sure, absolutely. I love sharing my story and being totally transparent because I think it's so important that women can hear that you can change at any stage. It doesn't matter if you're questioning life in your 30s, 40s, 50s. And I think it really happens 50s plus because our kids leave the house and we kind of look at our spouse or our significant other like, okay, and our parents' age. Yeah. Who are you?
Right.
Let's get to know each other again. So, my story probably doesn't start very differently than anybody else's. As far as my childhood, I was the youngest of three. I had two older brothers. Strangely enough, I have three children, two older boys, and my daughter is my youngest. But I was a traditional family, very quiet and shy and told to kind of do my thing, do my best. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. No problem.
Turn that one off. Do my best, strive to be the student. And I was always the people pleaser.
Mm.
And so traditional type of home, always the people pleaser, didn't want to disappoint anyone. And if that word disappoint was used in the house, it was kind of like stab me in the heart sort of thing. Went through school, went into college, and I don't even think I chose the college, really. I think my parents chose where I should go. I grew up outside of New York City, went to school quiet and shy, went to school in pretty much the middle of nowhere, Ohio. So take a kid out of New York and go quiet and shy and then isolate them even further. Mm-hmm. I just went more into isolation with the dreams of going to medical school. Didn't get into med school in the US and went into a graduate program. I liked genetics. That was kind of what I liked doing. Mm-hmm. But I didn't go into it more for my passion of science. It was twofold. I went into it because I liked it. And it was kind of like I didn't get into med school. So, okay, I'll do that.
Right.
But the lab was where I could hide. It wasn't, I could work hard, do something that I thought I was supposed to do, and I could hide. I could work hard and hide. During that time, though, my mother took ill with cancer and passed away at the age of 53, and I was 21, just kept me in hiding. And so my family life at home, they were all still in New York, my brothers and my father, and I just led more isolated. Time rolled on. I met my significant other to be my husband. He was in the DC area, and I just followed him, and life kind of transformed. I went into pharmaceutical sales. We got married. We started to raise a family.
I didn't know that about you. Okay.
Yeah, I started in pharmaceutical sales.
Okay, I never knew that about you. Right.
Again, something so out of my comfort zone, having to speak to anybody. Why would I do that?
Right.
but I left that to raise the family, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and one thing led to another. So I stayed at home for most of 12, 15 years or something. And then as college tuition started to roll around, my kids are just about 2.5 years apart. As college tuitions, I started to take on jobs. So I went into the corporate world, into training and things like that. And I still never really knew who I was, right? I kind of still served. I went from serving my parents to serving teachers to serving community to trying to be the mom of three. And almost, you know, to me, it was kind of like competition with myself. How many room parents could I be and how many team moms could I be and serving. And
Mm-hmm.
so I don't even think people knew who Robin Meyers was. And we'll talk about Joy as my middle
Yeah.
name. I never embraced that at all. But it wasn't until really the trigger was twofold. I was in this nonprofit job, working for a nonprofit organization, which looked like the picture perfect. It was combining my science and education. And I had a woman boss who triggered the old me. She kind of put me in a corner, which just triggered my past of people pleasing an authority figure. So that wasn't good. And I was turning 53. And as I was turning 53, my daughter turned 21. And it was just like the stars aligned and something went off in me. And it was like, I can't be silenced anymore. If I'm going to be a role model for her, if I am going to figure out who I am and still want to exist in this world, because I really did fight depression all my life. And if I was going to stay in this world,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I'm either going to stay in this world or I'm not going to stay in this world. But if I'm going to stay in this world, I better make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And so it really was a very transformative time because I had to figure out who I was. And it took me on this journey. And as you know, the more you start to learn about yourself, the more you uncover about yourself. And you really, you know, we're not taught how to trust ourselves and we're not taught how to love ourselves. We come into this world loving our caregivers, our parents, and everybody else, and
Mm-hmm.
trusting everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're supposed to raise, you know, obey authority and do things for others.
Yes.
And so it was really a very pivotal time.
I think that's, thank you for sharing. I mean, that's, I think many of us can relate to that, and I can certainly relate to that. And especially you mentioned those couple of defining moments, and the one about the woman who kind of, at the time really put you back into the place you didn't want to be. And I've just thought of that because that happened, similar thing happened to me. But at that time, when you're actually in that moment, you're so angry that that happens, right? But then later on, if we think about those defining moments, they actually are a lesson. They're the trigger that really puts you in. It's like a universe telling you that that person
It
is
is.
meant to be there to move you into the right path. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. You know, it was
Yeah.
such a hard time and frankly, PTSD time, but
Yeah.
as angry as I was, you're so right. I'm so thankful for going through that because I wouldn't be where I am today and I wouldn't
Right.
be doing and helping and encouraging and
Yeah.
exactly where I am today.
That's
because
amazing. Yeah.
totally set me off in the right direction.
Yeah. I wanted to go back. That's incredible, and I want to hear more about what you're doing today. But I wanted to ask you that I know you had told me once, and you also mentioned it just now, is that you were really as a young child you were afraid to speak in public, like you were even afraid to use your voice. But here you are now. You went on a public stage, TEDx stage. You've done all these amazing things. You've gone on talk shows. You're a renowned speaker. Okay, that begs the question, how did you overcome the fear? And now you're a fear strategist. So firstly, what is a fear strategist? And secondly, how did you overcome the fear? And what would you suggest to women who are looking at their lives and saying, I want to do this, but I'm afraid?
Okay.
Right? Yeah.
So fear strategist, really. So I want people to realize that, fear is this big word that I think society throws at us that we grow up with, that it has this negative connotation too.
Mm-hmm.
And so fear is real. And so the science of fear, this is where molecular genetics really did work for me. The science of fear is so true. And yes, there's that fight or flight response, but there's also the intuition that comes and the science of imprints that fall within that. So as you know, I've talked about this in conferences. There's 5 areas of the brain that ignite for just the response to happen. Within those 5 areas, there's the amygdala that literally stores imprints of reactions from in utero throughout your life. So if you think of every reaction as a child, even before you're born, but as a child, you don't realize what those reactions are as a child until about age 7. Now they say 7 to 9.
Mm.
So very often, like this woman, this boss that I had triggered something of me recognizing that
Right.
I couldn't even understand what that was, right? But I was almost 53 when it happened.
Mm-hmm,
And it was
mm-hmm.
like, oh, okay, now I
Got
can
it.
process it.
Yes.
So it's really a choice that you have to make. Like, is this serving me? And for me, it obviously wasn't serving me, to make a conscious choice.
Mm-hmm.
So fear is real. And I think when people are like, oh, just put fear aside, well, you have to understand how to do that and how to process it. So you have to kind of lean in and listen to it and say, okay, it's telling me something. So am I threatened that I do have to fight or flight? Listen to it. Or is it just waking me up? And so as a strategist, I want people to understand that scientifically, there's strategies to listen to your brain. There's strategies to say, okay, I can change patterns and behaviors and make, if they're not good patterns that become habits, well, I can make good patterns that become good habits.
Mm-hmm.
It's just your brain is really smart. And when you're used to doing something, you have to treat your brain like a muscle, which it is, and teach it the new habit. Now, how did I go from never wanting to speak to, like in school, wanting to physically get sick if I was asked to read something,
Right.
to taking a stage?
Yes.
Well,
Tell us.
well, something I treat it this way, teaching myself strategies, by the way.
Yeah.
I create resets for myself, right? I put in
Resets?
headphones. Yeah, resets. I put in headphones. I have playlists,
Yeah.
put together a playlist. But most importantly, if you have a message to tell, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, my biggest obstacle was, instead of treating it as being scared to get in front of people and talk, I know I have a message, and a unique message that can serve somebody. And if I can change one person's perception of a negative and understanding how they could shift it, even that one person,
Mm-hmm.
it's almost my obligation to share it.
I was
And
going to say it's so many of us have so many gifts, and you have so many that you're obligated to share.
You're obligated to share. And
Right?
that's the gift that you can give to that one person, to that community, and change society. And so that's what's really allowed me to get up and speak.
Mm-hmm. That's so true. I mean, I love what you're saying about fear, and actually not ignoring it, but actually accepting it, and realizing that it's real, and learning the strategies to overcome those, like you have done in your life. So, I know that you mentioned about choice, and you talk a little bit about the 3 C's, choice, chance, and change. So that might lead nicely into this, and in that, what do you mean by that? What are the 3 C's, and how do we apply them into our lives, and how can we help them overcome maybe that fear?
Yeah. So I call them the 3 C's of life.
Yeah.
And that is choice, chance, and change. That we always have a choice to take a chance to make a change.
Okay, say that
So
again.
we always have a choice to take a chance to make a change.
Nice.
Wherever you are in your life, whatever stage you're at, it's your decision to make that decision, to take a choice, to have a choice, to take a chance to make a change.
Mm-hmm.
So it really comes down again to beginning that journey of self-discovery. And it happens when you start getting uncomfortable. It happens when you start questioning why am I doing this? Or what is my why? Or, I'm just not comfortable. And then you fill in the blank, right? There's something that it's just something's not sitting right with you. And what is that? But we always have that. And frankly, that comes down to the fear, because sometimes we can fear change. No doubt about it. But change is growth.
Yeah.
And
sorry, go ahead.
Why not continue to grow?
Yeah.
I mean, that's life.
Yeah. And so, you're saying that we have a choice to make a change. But often as women and women who are listening, or the listeners on this podcast and in my community, for example, they say, well, it's easy for some people to say that, right? And if I want to make a change, though, there's all these other things that stand in my way. So whether that is, people around you saying, are you crazy? Like, look, you have, for example, for me, I had a seemingly perfect job. My career was great, just like you were describing, picture perfect. So people are wondering, and I would say almost criticizing your choice. And then there's those outer
fears.
obstacles, and then there's your inner critics and your inner voice that's telling you, okay, well, maybe they're right. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this, because what's going to happen if I do, and all those things that limit our growth. So maybe you can talk a little bit about some of the obstacles that you faced, and how did you get over those and move past those?
Absolutely. And you're so right. And it's so true. And it's real. And that's what people have to realize, that it's real. So, yeah, I dealt with it. And sometimes the people closest to you, like your immediate family, are the ones that it affects most. And, full transparency. My marriage went through some very, very hard times. In fact, we actually got divorced, and now we are back to dating.
Yeah. Okay.
We are, which is strange in its own sense. It's wonderful. So, but it was just realizing what we wanted and kind of working through things. It's really getting honest with yourself. And I think especially as women, we're naturally we're brought up that we're supposed to be the nurturers and the caregivers. And so take care of everybody else before you take care of yourself. Well, that's great until we start getting resentful or we can't breathe, and kind of comes into like the oxygen mask on the plane, right? If you don't put yours on first and you go to help your child or the person next to you, well, you're going to pass out. At some point, you're going to pass out or be resentful. For me, I didn't know who I was. And externally, the facade was fine. I did until internally I couldn't do anymore. I suffered depression. I just was not taking care of myself. And I think it is hard. I'm not going to tell you the journey is not hard, but you have to truly get honest with yourself. And when you find who you are and what you want, you show up better for everybody else. You have to stop that negative talk with yourself, because no one will give you your self-worth but yourself, right? We're women, we are so good. So, we're the professionals at taking away our self-worth and giving it to ourselves. We really are. But we have to give it to ourselves. And we have to realize that self-care it's mandatory, it's necessary. It's not something that's a luxury. And I think initially that's what we're not taught, right? We're not taught that it's a mandatory part of life. We're taught that that's a luxury. So we have to sit with that discomfort in the journey. We have to sit with being comfortable. I almost say get comfortably being uncomfortable as you change these discussions with yourself. Like back out and learn. It's all kind of strategies and mindset. Like back out of taking that deep breath and being like, I know I'm on this journey for myself, and others have to accept it and but I'm not proving anything to them. I have to do this for me.
You know, so true. And you're absolutely spot on. And that's why I've entitled this podcast, It's My Time Now. And because I do firmly believe that, you know, especially as you said, as women in midlife, or, you know, we've always kind of looked after everyone else and ourselves coming kind of last, right? So, and it may sound selfish, right? It's my time now, so you know it's selfish, but it's not. I think it's necessary, as you mentioned, and if we're going to live our next stage in life to the fullest, we have to have that self-care. We really have to. And I know that you had talked in one of our previous workshops, you talk about some tips and strategies for women, people to practice self-care and take care of themselves. Is there some kind of, tips that you could give the listeners in terms of, okay, how do I actually go about looking after myself?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm a big believer in that 5-minute thing.
Yeah.
5 minutes is the start for life right now.
Okay.
So you have to build a morning routine for you. You know, we're really good at scheduling everybody else in our lives, right? We're at our age, we're great at scheduling our parents' doctor's appointments and making sure, I mean, you know this, we both have children, making sure they get to what they need, right? They can still call us in their 20s and say, can you help me? And we do. So I want everyone to learn to schedule their time in. I am a proponent of scheduling 5 minutes in the morning. Start with 5 minutes. People are like, oh, that's easy. It's not easy. Remember, it doesn't matter if you're 50, 60, or 70. When you're 20 and you're starting a new job or a new workout routine, it's new. Like we have to remember that things are new. So when things are new, you have to train for it. So 5-minute morning routine, I suggest, and you know this, if you can do 2 days this week and do 2 days next week, and the third day is a bonus day. So by the end of the month, you're doing 4 days a week. And then the next week, you're adding in. So it becomes a new pattern. Where we fail is that we go all in for 3, 4, 5 weeks. And then it's like, and your brain is the one that does it, right? Your conscious brain is like, don't get up today. You're tired, sleep in. You're fine. Or you've got to get somewhere. But you just have to slowly change the patterns. So if it's a cup of coffee and just quiet time, that's great. If it's stretching, a yoga, I jump rope just because it gets my blood flowing. I think I last maybe 30 seconds, but I just do it. I literally reach over for a jump rope and just do it. It's not pretty, but I do it.
Yeah.
But I say do this. Start with 2 questions for the day. How do you want to feel? And the second question is, what do you need to have happen today?
How do you want to feel?
And what do I need to have happen for me today?
Nice.
You know, if you'd like to journal, that's great. But I want you to be able to schedule things in. Find time to get outside and take a walk. And if it's freezing cold, bundle up or just open the door. You know, if it's a candle, like I have my candle, like just to get different scents, you know, just to change the scenery, just to put on music. Just little things that change the brain from firing in the same thing. And honestly, if your negative talk is starting, if you start that guilt thing, shut down for 5 minutes. I mean, honestly, unless the house is on fire or you're running to the hospital. I hope you're not, but if you are, there's no reason why you just can't shut down for 5 minutes.
Yeah. And I think I was speaking to another guest about this, and that we're all in a very unique situation with COVID. And I think now more than ever, we've had this opportunity, and I think it is an opportunity. I don't know, but you think to really do that, to really have the time, take the time out, like you said, even if it's 5 minutes or however much time you want. What I do is I wake up in the morning and I make my water with hot water with lemon, and I sit and it could be meditating, it could be just being in silence, and then I journal, and then I do some exercise, and that's kind of my routine. And it can be a different routine for anybody. It doesn't have to be, the typical meditation and all that, but it's so important, as you said, to take that time. And one of the things I wanted to ask you, and you have a new book. Yeah, is this your newest book, or
The Common Denominator.
Alone but Not Lonely?
That's my first book. Yeah.
Okay.
Alone but Not
Yeah.
Lonely.
So the book that's called Alone but Not Lonely, I think it's very relevant, especially now, because we're all kind of during the pandemic, we're all at home. What are some of the tips from that book in terms of sharing, that you could share in terms of how do we overcome loneliness? How do we get over not having the social connections that we used to?
Right. So alone but not lonely. Alone in solitude is important, because that is where we can get into our own heads, and that is where we find our time to grow. So that is in the morning, 5-minute morning routine. And we'll talk about quick evening routine as well. Like,
Sure.
3 to 5 things that you're grateful for just helps like shut down the brain. You know what I mean? Like, might be hard to think of some things, but getting out of bed might be that win for the day.
Yeah.
It just might be. So
Right.
try and do something like that. Now, the loneliness and isolation part is difficult. So don't be afraid to reach out. Obviously, Zoom is doing quite well these days because we're all using it. FaceTime is another way. But connect with people. Connect with old friends that you might not have spoken with. Pick up the phone if you don't want to do the video, but don't be, the rules are kind of out the door. Don't be concerned, like, my hair's not done, or, the makeup's not on. It doesn't matter at this point. Just connect with people, have a phone call, have a virtual coffee, have a virtual happy hour if you want to do that. Just start connecting with people, and push yourself out of that comfort zone. Push yourself out of, I'm just not feeling it, or, I don't look the way I want to look.
Or maybe having to be perfect all the time, right? Like having to,
and perfection, as we know,
yeah,
it's never going to be perfect. And don't wait for that perfect moment, because just do it.
right.
So every little step is just do it. And especially right now, being in this time of COVID where we are more isolated, like, what is that thing that you wanted to try that maybe you never had time for if you were working, or not, and you were commuting? What is that thing? Do you want to take a paint class? Do you want to try a yoga class? Like, so many things are being offered online. Even classes at universities are now being offered online, even for free. So jump on it. If you want to try a music class, you want to try a language class, just start reaching out.
Yeah, it's an opportunity. There's so much available online. So many things that you can enrich yourself with. That you've always wanted to do. Think back when you were a child and what made you happy, what gave you joy, right? Maybe those are the things that are going to give you joy now, right? Speaking of joy.
Speaking of joy. And
tell me what joy does mean to you. Your middle name is Joy, and you said that initially earlier in life you didn't use that name, but now that seems to pervade your life and in a lot of your programs and everything. So what does joy mean to you?
It is so funny that my middle name is Joy, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
So just as the background, joy, I thought was given to me because it rhymed with the word boy. When I was born, my grandfather came up with the poem, Robin Joy, we're so glad you're not a boy, because I had 2 brothers. And I was like, that's a horrible name. That's a horrible poem. Like, but who would give their kid that name?
Yeah.
And it really wasn't until really the recent past couple of years that I've embraced it. And so joy means to me is truly being totally authentic and unapologetic. I know that I found I use Robin Joy all the time now.
That's great.
I know my joy means 100% being unapologetic for who I am and what I stand for, and totally trusting my actions and my decisions, because they truly come from a place of pure joy and heart.
Wow. I'm
And I've
speechless. I
never
don't
been
know.
happier.
That's
I've never been
amazing.
happier.
Really. I'm
Yeah,
so happy.
totally honest.
That's amazing. That's so, you know, that's a whole other podcast. How do you find the joy? But I
Yeah, we
will
can get
ask
into
you,
that
yeah,
another
we could
time.
get, yeah, but I would just ask, maybe the last question is, you know, what are you most proud of in your life?
Oh gosh. Um, well, honestly, by far, I would say my 3 kids, probably. I've got to
Yeah.
give it to them. Um, I think they really are what I'm most proud of, just in the sense that they are remarkable. I'm
Hmm.
very proud that I get to see them as they emerge into their adult life, because my mother did not see me in my adult life.
Hmm.
And maybe that is a gift, because maybe that was part of some plan of me becoming who I was, to be honest. But I get to see them in this unique stage, and they are just 3 so different, incredibly different, but amazing young adults with that will change the world. I mean, they
Yes.
each bring such a unique gift to this world. So,
That's amazing.
yeah,
And you know what, you're giving them the, you're such a role model for them, and that you've overcome your fears. You're teaching others how to overcome theirs, and you're setting an example for them to be great, you know, you know, great people in the future, and they already are. Sounds like it, but the example you've given them and that you've shared with everybody today is something you should be very proud of.
well, thank you. Thanks. Well, I learned a lot from them myself. So,
Yeah, you know, the kids nowadays they have so much to learn from them too. And
I
yeah,
know.
it's they're incredible. They're so knowledgeable, and they're so careful also. And you know, with what's going on with COVID, I know that my kids are really, you know, they're very respectful of everything. So it's something that we can totally learn from them as well. So,
Totally. Totally.
so Robin, tell us a little bit more about where we can find you, and what are some of the things that are happening in your consulting and your coaching, and what are some fun things that are going on with you right now?
So, fun things going on with me is I am doing a free workshop calling Joy Unleashed, Choice, Chance, and Change.
Nice.
So that will be posted and continuing to be posted, because I'm going to start virtual retreats. So since I can't travel and I want to,
Awesome. That's
um,
awesome.
I will post. I'm going to start the first weekend of February, which I realize is only a weekend away or 2 weekends away.
Mm.
A weekend retreat in Tuscany. We will start with that. And
Love it.
so
Love it. Love it.
it will be how to dream it, believe it, and actually achieve it. So we'll talk
Wow.
about that. And I hope to do a new location monthly, hopefully. But yeah, so the idea is really to, get some new workshops out there and a membership sort of to support women. And I have a Lunch and Life Thursday talk show on YouTube at 12:30. Um, and really, I'm working on getting my word out through media.
Yes.
I was on Hallmark. I'm hoping to get some more shows like that.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And you have a new book coming up as well?
I have a new book coming up, which I'm trying to make sure I take time to write, called The
Yes.
Common Denominator.
Nice.
And
Nice.
little bit of my math and science geekiness coming out, but with fractions, you can't add until you have a common denominator. And so
Amazing. Yeah.
it's not to get too harsh with people, but it comes down to us. We really have to make that decision of getting ourselves under control, that we can take everybody else's stuff on, but we have to get to really know who we are and make the choice if we're going to keep patterns or release patterns and create new patterns for better habits. So
And put a little bit of joy into our lives, right?
and put a lot of joy into our lives.
Thank
And
you.
find that true joy. So yeah, you can go to my website,
Yeah.
robinjoymeyers.com.
Okay. Yeah.
Pretty much everything is Robin Joy Meyers, Instagram,
Perfect.
website.
So we'll have all your information in our show notes, and everybody, I'd encourage you to seek out Robin with her expertise, and just giving us some great tips today, and look forward to maybe a trip to Tuscany or somewhere else.
Come join me in Tuscany virtually.
But thank you again for your generosity and your time and your great tips and your expertise. And maybe we can have a follow-up discussion.
I would love that. I
Yeah.
would love that. And thank you for having me, and always willing to have a conversation. So if anyone is stuck, don't hesitate to just reach out, because happy to help nudge you on and get you through.
Perfect. Perfect. Thanks again, Robin.
Thank you.
Take care.